I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this almost spring day. Agenda changes, we have one. On page 2, extracurricular, the very last, the dollar amount, instead of $125, is $400.
Where's that, John?
On page 2,
Under F?
F, yes, the very last one. Middle school accompanist is $400 instead of $125.
For both of them, John, or just the
Just
bottom?
the very last
Just the
one.
very last.
Just for
For Brenda Posey?
Yeah.
Mr. Gell, we have a presentation, Mr. Gell, this evening. Promise to be short and sweet.
Hey, you were in the magazine.
Yeah.
You're much better looking in person.
I didn't think it was that bad.
You should come and see us every day. You need to come every board meeting.
Okay, and so I'm calling the next thing the Michelle Obama grant application, but that's not really what it is. But our recipe for squash is that the youth go out and with buckets that hold 0.5 cubic feet, they put the compost into beds which are 9 inches or 0.75 feet tall, and they measure the length and the width and stuff like that. And with Michael Naylor's 4th grade, we did this. It takes a while to calm kids down enough so that they'll do the math and all like that, but they really want to get to the buckets, so they'll do that. And BOCES is very happy with this picture, so that we can. They would like to use it for a core curriculum manipulative. Okay, and then we got a metric that might work.
Are you the artist, David?
I'm sorry.
Are you the artist of that drawing?
No, I'm behind the camera,
Oh.
and what it
It's a real
is.
photo?
Yeah, this is a photo that the kids in what we're calling the industrial arts room. Okay, because industrial arts is really important, and then they print it as a line drawing. Okay, and then I sort of got this a little bit helpful, and they do already have the perspective there, so they can make dimension lines parallel to the bed and everything like that. So, and also they have to read the seed package of squash, which says 100 days. And then when we started this, the timeline was difficult. So 100 days.
What grade?
That was 5th grade.
They're not 8th graders.
Whoa.
Point of the story is, this is Trumansburg. I bumped into them at the library, and then here we are Friday, Max's 5th grade homeroom. Got to go out into the garden and harvest carrots, onions, and kale, and weigh them. And now soup is being made out of them, and it will be served in the cafeteria on Monday. So, how awesome is that? Pretty awesome. How awesome is that?
So that's my minute.
Well done.
Well done, Dan.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
He's coming back.
Well, moving along here on the consent agenda, for a motion, 5A through F.
Okay, I'd like to take out B.
What you want to take off here?
B.
Okay,
Just have a couple of questions.
anything else? Looking for a motion?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
If somebody else took out C. It takes on a life of its own.
Her computer has deleted those.
So what page are you on, Peter?
Oh, gosh. Well, the front page, for starters.
One and then moving to,
Well, I have three questions, only questions. On the front page, the vehicle and equipment reserve is, we took out 342. Is that for buses?
Yes,
Okay. That's for buses
that we just paid for this
we
fall,
just paid for.
Correct.
And we bought them,
out of the reserve,
and
the reserve money.
we have those buses, or they're
We
coming?
have all three, two.
Two are in service, the third one being delivered this week. It was the wheelchair bus, which was having air conditioning and the wheelchair was being installed, so it was 2 weeks behind the other two.
Okay.
Two of them are in service on the road.
Okay, thank you. My next question is deep in here on page, I can't tell, page 1, but there's a lot of page 1s. It's about the capital fund, Fund H.
Need more of a description, Peter.
What do you say? H, capital.
It's got handwriting on the bottom of it.
It has handwriting on the bottom of
Expenditures.
it. Yeah. It's about 2/3 of the way through the packet, maybe.
the numbering on these has always been an issue.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
It says prior year expenditure
Okay, yep.
with handwriting.
Yep.
What is the status of that capital fund now? The unencumbered balance is 557,000. You see that?
Year-to-date expenditures are 566,000,
Right,
and outstanding encumbrances, which is,
350.
yes.
So, I guess the bottom line is, it says 9,307,000 that we've spent. Is that correct?
That is correct, and I spoke with Karen Moon probably 3 weeks ago, just prior to us ordering the cardio equipment for the high school. And
Okay.
at that time, she projected, the cardio equipment came in around 43,000, 45,000, and she projected at that time that we would have about 87,000 to spare, so less the 43. So when we're all said and done with that capital project, we should have about 43,000 left.
So the capital project was 9,645 or something like that?
Correct,
And we spent 9,307,
correct.
and we have, just a few details left.
It's those final expenditures that are being paid out to the contractors as they finish, like the
340,000 left.
the retainage that we keep until they've completely finished everything.
Okay. Okay.
My understanding is the majority of it is spoken for, with the exception of about 50,000.
Okay.
Surprise.
Which we know that we had that obligation, but we haven't paid it all out until we're satisfied that everything has been completed.
And what happens to that last 40,000?
That would stay in the capital fund.
So we would add that to
You
our
can
capital
reserve.
Yeah,
fund reserve.
That's good.
it's just
Yeah.
not spent.
Okay,
That's good.
so if our.
There must be a cap on how much you can actually move into that reserve after a capital project. Like if you leave a bunch, do
That was-
districts usually leave much in
That
there?
was established by board policy, so we can return that fund, that fee back into the capital account because we're not at the max yet.
Okay.
I would have to look at it.
Although you may get a bill in 6 months for something.
I don't believe.
Well, but then the state will send building aid that they owe us from 2003. Which is, I think they're up to 2003 now. I think we got 2003 or 2002 aid last year.
Okay, I just have one more thing, which is, I think about 3 pages, 2 pages from the end, 3 pages from the end. which is the New Roots student tuition. I have a question on that.
What page is this, Peter?
I think it's 3 from the end,
Is it page 13 in the top right?
page 11. I
Page
believe
11.
it is.
Okay, go ahead.
All right.
I just wonder where we stand with that. We budgeted 115 and we've expended 95. Is that gonna be the extent of our expenditure?
We monitor that, so each month we're checking the attendance against what they have in our tuition. Our tuition did increase, I can't remember by the number of students, it was more than we had budgeted, so more students attended New Roots than we had anticipated for this year. So we actually may overexpend that budget line, but it changes, some of the students don't stay, some of them return to us, some of them drop out.
It's a liquid situation.
Is it a by student cost?
It is.
And how many extra students do they know how many?
I
extra there
believe
were?
we're paying for roughly 14 right now.
And what's the tuition there?
Oh, I don't know right off the top of my
Can
head.
we
Peter?
budget
Is it gonna be a
for
big
others?
number?
It's like 12 or 13,000 in that range?
It is costly. It's over 10 grand.
Well, how many more went than we were expecting?
Yes, how many did we budget for initially?
I believe we had budgeted for 10 to 12, and they're 14 to 15.
So the
students there.
overage,
It's like 30,000.
Yeah.
but it's usually encumbered this early?
If we know consistently we have 14 students attending, then we'll
Because we're only a few months into this year's budget and we've already expended
We
most of
would have
it.
to pay them in September for their anticipated, yes?
We actually make 6 payments to New Roots.
We make 6 payments
And we're 95 already?
and we,
Like, we start paying them in July is the first payment, based on the tuition, based on students that will be attending in the fall.
So it's every couple of months you make a payment.
Right.
and we've already spent 95. And it's December.
I can look into that.
Yeah.
Peter,
Well, I'm
to
just-
double check it.
Yeah, just wondering where we stand overall with that.
Well, that would probably leave 2 more payments left to go.
Correct.
Between,
So if we grow.
I'll give you
Everybody
the
sticks,
complete-
we're over a bit.
So we're over 1% of the population,
Yeah.
1% of our student population.
I'll give you the exact breakdown, number of payments when we're making them.
Is it the number or the issue of more students are going?
Well, I just wonder both, yeah. If the tuition's gone up and, you know.
We
Our
really just don't
obligation
have
is
any
up.
say.
Yeah, we don't have any
You know,
say in that.
if students choose to attend, in some cases, we've had students attend that we didn't even have on our radar. They don't have to register with Trumansburg Schools first.
Really?
So as long as they're a resident, which New Roots will show to us through proof of residency,
Yeah.
they're not necessarily even registered here as students, so we didn't even know we had that kiddo to go there.
There goes $12,000 or $13,000.
Exactly.
Okay, that was all I had.
Anyone else?
Yes, just a quick question on the school lunch fund. I don't think I'm reading this right. Have we not paid anything for food as of today?
Dave Gallo.
What page are you on?
Because I know the garden's good, but,
Mr. Gill's quite successful.
Which page are you on, Jane?
well, that's page 1. It's probably the first page of the thing. It's the school fund C, school lunch fund.
So there it is, right, the first page.
Yeah.
So it's,
We definitely have paid vendors and we've been approving them through WinCap. This is for the month of September, so maybe early on in September.
Okay, so this is a month report as opposed to a cumulative report?
it's a September report.
This is
We
the
get these every
September
month.
statement, so I've definitely approved purchase orders to various vendors.
So that year-to-date is simply for September, it's not cumulative from June?
That's correct.
That's what my confusion was.
Yes.
I'm looking at, right now, we're getting food for free.
No.
Kimberly, we get aid based on students' daily attendance?
We do,
Do we get aid for the students attending New Roots?
we do.
And how does that compare to what we're sending New Roots?
We send them more than we receive.
So we gotta approve that board.
Anyone else?
financial report. Nope, nope, you good?
All in favor for 5B?
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, do we do motions?
Let's get set first.
It got pulled off. and stuff.
Yeah, we,
Yeah, we need to.
so acceptance of the monthly financial report, need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Correspondence. Anyone? Administrators report? Mr. Carr?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. One is the whole APPR, remember we submitted and we were waiting to hear back from the state and we did, and then we had our call. And we actually had about 7 pages of things to look at, but it turns out a lot of them are fairly minor corrections, like they wanted the word enterprise on the name of our STAR test because, I don't know, maybe they have several brands of tests or whatever. So we had to change the word enterprise. I think the most complicated part of what we need to change is around the principles. We had misinterpreted, mostly around Jeannie, to be honest. We had misinterpreted her 4th grade score, what it was going to be, and then we really need to turn it into an SLO, we believe. So we're working on that, and there were some things that were perfectly clear to us, but were not clear to them, and so we're changing some of our language to match their needs. And then what we'll do is we'll send it back to this one guy. He said, I'll take a look at it before you get signatures again, because we have to do the signature thing again. What we're trying to avoid is any changes to the MOA with the Trumansburg Teachers Association. And I think so far we might be successful, so that's a good thing. And then the second thing is that tomorrow evening in our cafeteria, we'll be doing our forum. And you will see lots of things this week. I'll just do a little show and tell here. This is a poster that Jim Scagliano has produced. And then he also has done some things on our website. Just go and click right on the front, and there's a revolving boat, kind of a cartoonish kind of looking thing, but it gets your eye. And tomorrow evening we'll be doing our forum from 7 till 9 in our high school cafeteria. And I've invited a lot of our team members who have been here for lots of the presentations. Karen Moon is going to come and talk briefly about state aid for anyone that shows up, just that whole concept, because how does $3 million turn into $10.8 million? And then Andrea and Steve are here, and I've asked Andrea to speak tonight, and tomorrow night they'll be making a brief presentation just about pieces of it and be there to answer questions. But we've been kind of talking about the parent drop-off thing, and that's kind of like one of those questions that hasn't been answered. And I've been talking to Andrea about it, and I asked her to come this evening just to sort of just stand the topic up and talk about it, because when it was woven into, I think Michael Babcock said they started with what, $25 million worth of identified needs. We were up 23. And then when we whittled it down to 10.8, so where does the parent drop off and that whole situation out there fall in that? And we've kind of hinted around at it, but never really just addressed it straight up all by itself. And so I asked Andrea if she'd come tonight and talk about that a little bit. And Steve's always a resource, of course, for us. But tomorrow night we're hoping some people will come out. And it's been advertised, and we should.
Is Scaglione going to come and videotape some of it?
I don't know. I don't know if he was going to. He could. He'll do anything we ask him to. He paid him a fee to do all these different things, so he can do that. Yes.
I would just like to comment that I thought Bryce DeSantis' little video was absolutely wonderful. It just touched the right note.
Yep.
I would also have a question on how long we think getting the elementary school APPR piece completed. Right, I just left Albany, and as I left, the last date for acceptable was about the 14th of this month.
For the elementary?
No, just for the whole.
Over the whole.
For the whatever the.
Well, we're hopeful.
really close.
We're
Okay.
hopeful. They said they would give a resubmission a priority.
Yeah,
So-
they do, but I guess the cutoff for anything they think is gonna be the 14th.
Okay, well, we'll probably go right in under that wire.
That's good.
But we're hopeful.
Yeah,
Michaela said our submission had about half the corrections of another district that she was working with, so. we hope we're gonna-
and there are any number of districts that just don't know where at all, which is very scary.
Yeah. So, Andrew, do you want to speak to the parent drop-off? Just like, I wouldn't want you to come all prepared and not ask you to speak.
I am prepared. We are prepared.
Hello.
Steve's gonna help, of course.
I'll pass this. You'll be Dana White. World reversal.
Thank you.
So we did hear of some concerns about the parent drop-off, and we've actually been working on those ideas for months. I think I stated last time we were here that we met with Jeannie and we met with John to talk about the differences between Delaney Drive and the elementary school drop-off and where some of the issues are and areas of concern where congestion happens. I've been kind of in the loop thanks to Jeannie, hearing about incidents that happen in the parking lot during the day or after hours.
I think we've had 4 since we talked about it last.
Yes.
haven't we?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. The students getting bumped by cars backing into each other, not small things.
So that kind of prefaces one of the biggest things we're really concentrating on is this fix versus improvements. And part of the problem is the drivers, and none of us can control that. We can only control our own vehicles. So with all of that considered, we kind of have been really concentrating on getting the parking on Delaney Drive off of Delaney Drive. So we're gonna try to make little driveways and little parking lots that we're not changing parking counts, car counts. But unfortunately, the vote hasn't passed to date, and it will next week, and we haven't proceeded too much further than, we haven't gone through studies. We talked about doing a circulation study. Basically, the funding's not there for that work to occur yet, so we didn't want to progress until we knew for sure that we could continue on. So splitting that up into the 2 different
Well,
areas.
let me explain. When we do the pre-referendum services, we get enough information out to get a budget together, to get information out to the voting public, but we haven't done a design yet, and that's really what Andrea is talking about, to solve all these issues, and that comes next. And that involves working with not just Mr. Babcock, but also with Jeannie and with members of the board too, as we keep you up to date throughout the project.
Now, could I ask how qualified is your firm to do traffic flow?
You did your downtown.
Hmm?
You did your downtown. So is that good or bad?
That explains it.
Peter has to drive.
Let me
through
ask
it.
that
I don't
again.
know.
I mean, are there companies that are more qualified to do traffic
I think,
flow studies? and that
really
kind of
it's,
thing?
what we're talking about is more circulation than traffic, because
Well,
we're not really
yeah.
extending it out to
Right.
96. So what we're talking about here is the fact that we've got, 65 cars back here that can park here, and we've got a thoroughfare there. We have
I
really 3
understand
crossings.
that's an issue, but I'm just wondering if we might do, if there's another group or a firm that is more, does more work with traffic flow and that kind of thing, or are you confident that this is
We're
something
confident
that's-
we can, because we
Yeah.
work with traffic on every project. It's not an unusual thing for
Yeah.
us to see.
We are entertaining hiring a consultant to help us through with some of those studies. Basically, what that would include is them coming here
Doing
for a
count.
period of time and
Yeah.
observing
Watching, yeah,
from
right.
day to night, and they would help us out to do that. The ultimate design is our responsibility.
Yeah, I would have to. Okay.
And I don't know. It's kind of where we're at. Is there any questions, concerns? I passed these out just to give you an idea of the relationship that we see, an overview between the elementary school and the high school. I can go over I just jotted down a few notes that the parent drop-off area.
Thanks for coming. Yeah, thanks. There's nothing to chat about. We're gonna sit and chat about 10 different permutations and be nowhere we are than we are right now.
Right. More involved once we
Trying to figure
start
out what this
developing
was
it.
about, actually.
You know,
This
one
is
of
on.
For people who may not know the existing condition.
Oh, okay.
But the trees,
No, don't do it, Gary. Don't do it. Don't do it. You can start. We're gonna be here another hour. You start this.
Go ahead, start, Gary.
Go ahead, yeah. You got it. Here we go.
Come on out.
Well, am I understanding you to say that you have no design at this point and no cost associated with this at
We
this time?
have a cost associated.
in $200,000 or $300,000.
Just what Peter wanted to hear.
And we have
He walked
costs
right into it.
associated
He walked
with
right
that.
into it.
Well, let's talk about this for a minute. We have costs associated with doing fixes to the parent drop-off and also Delaney Drive.
Correct.
And so we look at the two together, frankly. And that partials out about $350,000 between those two.
And where does that fit into the previous scheme of expenditures and the grand scheme of the project? I guess my question is, are we trading off some other big item for the parking lot?
No,
Okay.
it's part and parcel of the vote right now.
I understand that, but to get what we want, because there was major concern that the design you offered last time didn't really address the issue, is that fair to say?
That's correct.
Fair to say,
Okay,
yes.
so to get the design we want and to address the issue, does that mean that we're going to have to forfeit some other
We
part?
may have to, yeah, if we identify that in the future, yeah. But we don't know, because we haven't designed it. I'm not being smug.
Okay.
The track's not in until the minute you're walking on it.
I'd like to clarify too, that the diagram you saw is a concept, it's a sketch, it's a schematic. It was based on conversations the group, our team had, some of the limited, minute details of concern areas. We weren't even aware of some of the issues that were going on until the budget was established. And as I stated last time, we are definitely making it bigger and making it a priority on this project. And if it comes back that there's a disaster happening here in circulation, then we may need to not sacrifice a piece of the project, but it may become an alternate.
I mean, think back 5 years ago when we did the $9,645,000 project, which you've spent down over the past 5 years. We had an initial phase and we had 2 projects following that. Almost the identical process was followed. We know we didn't get everything because we couldn't get everything under the 9.6 million. At 10.8, we're not going to get everything still, but we have identified pieces for each one.
Well, we'll say, Steve, that on that 9.645, we got more than we thought we would get.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because
Yeah,
of
so they've left
the
it.
economy at the time.
The economy was horrible at the time but it was very advantageous to bidding.
It was.
And the economy hasn't improved a whole heck of a lot from bidding. From bidding standpoint.
Well, just my opinion here, but this is, as far as I'm concerned, the priority item regarding the health and safety of the kids getting in and out of there. And the last time you were here, somebody mentioned, and I'm not sure if it's your firm or not, that the trees in there were sacred. They're not.
Okay.
If we need to remove trees to make this safe.
No, I made that comment, I didn't say sacred, just we said, these are three pieces.
So when you do, Mike, when they do this, he's in the discussion, yes?
Yes.
You have ideas, don't you? You've been the one standing on top of that roof, watching this knuckleheads, all of us knuckleheads for the last couple of years. I'm sure you have a.
worse, by the
You don't even remember, I haven't been in that building for years.
Actually, what I can say is that the budgeted amount that's presently carried in the 10.8 is based on previous conversations, myself, members of BDA, Jim Sylveskis, Judy Pastel, Jeannie was involved, based on the issues we knew at that time. So now that there's been further discussion, more concerns have been raised, it is reasonable to believe that cost may go up some, but we don't know until we actually do the design, so we know exactly what we're looking at here. The safest way is always totally separate cars from pedestrians. We don't have the real estate in that area to do it, so it's going to have to be some compromise of space and what we
To
have.
keep the
worked-
park, we won't be able to keep the parking spaces.
Yeah,
Not have parking.
exactly.
But we've got other places to park cars. Sure.
Yeah.
We do. People
And I-
have to walk farther, and that's, yeah.
I would recommend that tomorrow night, we make it perfectly clear that this is a number one priority. I mean, we can't have people backing into kids, bumping kids. I'm glad they're just bumps, it's a miracle they are, or each other, that just,
It seems like there needs to be some thought about procedural stuff, about when people can drive, where, the whole thought about having safety patrol to make sure kids are being
escorted
following
or,
walkways and escorted. I mean, 'cause I think we could do a lot with that, because the reality is you got one road coming in here, and then it goes like this in
Pretty
6 different
narrow.
directions. You can't stop. You can't
Unless
fix
you,
that.
unless you blow the whole thing up
Right.
and put a huge, sort of new thing in there, which is
Right.
a lot of dough.
Well, one of the things we already know is that the traffic flow is probably backwards. In order to get the maximum number of people in there to drop off, now that the new entrance has moved to this side of the building, we need to reverse the flow.
That's
We
fine.
already know that. You get more cars in. And then a sidewalk, give them a place to be with a curb where cars can't get to the pedestrian. So those are all improvements.
And with that, you can't keep the students from going off the sidewalks.
You
so
can't
there's-
have safety
you
patrol
know,
there to watch
right,
kids.
so-
Yeah, so you're right,
And they're
it's gotta be,
free.
it may have to be well, I think what we're saying, and this is good, right, we're saying, we wanna make this a priority for what we're gonna build, but we're also willing to do some procedural things
They need
to,
look at that.
to bring the budget number into what we can do. So I think this is really good.
Yes,
Right.
And this is good for tomorrow night too, but we're gonna have to do that too.
For instance, that's what came out in last project, when we voted, we didn't have this alternate location for the entry.
No.
And that became an issue during design, so that we created.
Oh, the single
entrance to
point
the-
access.
Yes, sir, no.
Right, because originally we were looking at the other
The other
side
side
and
of the
said,
building.
well, here's where the parking is, so maybe we need to move it to this side.
So that changed.
So that was an afterthought.
Art classroom went over there, offices came over here. We had some, and the thing you get out of that may not be readily understandable is when you stand inside that building, you look towards the high school, inside the elementary, you can actually see people. Before, what you looked at, because the steps went immediately down, you
Right.
saw nothing. Now you can see people.
You saw
And
it.
that's supervision, a little implied supervision helps, right?
Anything else?
That's a really good superintendent's report you got there.
This back
Well,
road
the
back
light
here,
one.
John. This back road that
But
comes
we'll
to the
make
backside.
sure that when people
Never
come
been
to our
used for
table,
bus before.
that they hear
It's
this board
used in
will
buses.
say,
It used to be the-
this is a primary issue.
yeah.
Okay,
Used to be the what?
It was called Wickster, that's what it used to be.
please come out.
Yeah, because they block off this road down here from traffic, off Wig.
Yeah, this is an
And we
old.
forced everybody to come up that one.
Okay, moving on here. Thank you.
John, you already got those things. Okay, so what I'm handing out right now is I've had some very recent feedback that for the budget presentation, that are starting very soon. Last year, the format was in the form of a PowerPoint. Basically, it was line by line of the entire budget. And there was a lot of detail. It included how much we had expended the previous year, what the previous year's budget was, current year budget, current year expenditures, and then projections. We're very early into the process this year, so current year expenditures, they're actually in your packet. They're through September. They're not very telltale at this point because we're so new into the school year. So what you have in front of you are, I saved some money on the color copies. Black and white copies, I realize they're hard, difficult to read. But that's actually line by line of general support. And it's exactly the same format as last year. It's not in the PowerPoint, rather it's every detail on every line, which I can easily give to you at every board presentation. To complement that is part of what I covered at the Saturday board meeting, which is more of a general overview. So where are our expenditures, what are we looking at, what kind of revenue are we bringing in? And so my thought was to give you a little bit of both. And also a new component this year that Mr. McGuire had recommended is to cover a little synopsis about each of those roles. So you'll see there's one in there for me. There's also one in for transportation, Director of Transportation. And what that covers is what the job description is for that person, the highlights of our current fiscal, and then the highlights as we move forward. So if this seems acceptable, this is what we will start with at the next board meeting, and I'll present both formats together.
Yes, and then
Yes.
send, just send it, even if it's a walk-on, so I can see it here.
You got it.
Because I can have color here, it doesn't cost the district anything.
Right.
I'm the cheapest board member here.
Okay.
So.
that's what I will do.
Because even if you got it to me, you know, as a walk-on, because I know sometimes, you know, we need input to figure things out sometimes. So.
And so if it's too much detail in every line as I'm presenting, we can always, are you short?
Yes.
Yes.
Short a copy.
That was on
Short
purpose.
copy.
I know. I asked one question and right away cut off.
As I start presenting next week, if it's too much detail in every single line, you know, many of those lines are only changing by 1% or less.
You're talking about.
$100,000, don't tell us.
Okay, so I'll
Yes,
stick
let's stick to
those,
what's material,
but
right?
you'll still have it in front of you.
But the board needs, we want to stick to what's material, right? I mean, we have to sort of set what's a material expense that, or a material deviation of some sort.
And so my final statement is that what I've really been looking at in building a new budget is that we have 4 areas of major increases. Projected TTA salaries, health insurance increases, ERS increase, and TRS increase. And right now, not having all the numbers solidified, our best projection, we're looking at about an increase of $820,000 in next year's budget to cover just those areas. So what we're attempting to do in the line items, in the less significant areas, supplies, materials, conferences, travel, we're trying to just do a rollover budget and keep that as flat as possible, and where we can, we'll decrease that.
What is the projected increase in our revenue under the 2% tax cap? So you just said to us, we have $800,000 to make up.
Right.
What is the projected revenue we're going to get to make that up?
Last year at 2.7, and I'm projecting we'll probably be right around 2.7 again, but I won't have those numbers until January. It generated $259,000. But that flushes out with the rest of the revenue stream, so when you factor in gap elimination and perhaps a loss in state aid this year, it may end up being far less than that.
So the most you think we're going to get an increase in revenue is $250,000 under ideal circumstances.
Correct, somewhere in that
That
ballpark.
we'll be able to put towards that 800,000.
Correct.
So
Does that 800,000 include the 250,000 that we're going, okay, that,
That 800,000
Based on-
straight expenditure increases,
okay,
straight out of the gate.
So Kim, this,
Personnel.
right.
the personnel components, which is the largest component.
Right, uncontrollable.
over the last 4 years, our expenditure budget is flatlined or actually decreased over the last
That's
4 years.
correct.
That's what we use the excess fund balance for,
To keep this number down,
That's correct.
in part, yes.
but we're spending more, we're just taking less out of the.
Well,
That
we restrict-
expenditure budget is exactly what we're expending right there.
Well, then how is the reserve helping that? That number is just what we're spending, right?
Well, actually, John's correct, because we make interfund transfers out of the reserves. So that actually, we have an expenditure, but it's offset by the reserves.
So we're actually spending more than this, just some's coming from a different pot.
It's our savings account,
Yeah.
but that's what we.
I just wanted, I mean,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, and, yeah.
The fact that we were actually flat with increased cost, if this was the case, that was pretty encouraging, but how you can't keep cutting forever.
Well, and that's part of the dilemma, is that we have pretty healthy reserves at this point, but when I project those out 5 years,
Right.
we're slowly depleting those, and so we need to wean ourselves from
Well, the problem is
dependency on reserves.
we're only withdrawing, we used to have some excess fund balance, and we may still, where we have a little, available cushion over the 4% that we're supposed to keep.
Right.
And over the years, we've had, before I was on the board, apparently, they were putting in large chunks of money into reserves, into the savings account. And so you take it out and put it in, it was a sustainable approach. Well, now, in these lean times, and you know, we're just in the process of downsizing. We're in for this for 3 years minimum, maybe 5. So if you're not in the cutting mood, it's not gonna be a pleasant time.
No,
There's just no way around it.
That was promising looking. When I saw that, I didn't realize that there were increases.
And actually, that has hurt us, Glenn.
Right.
That has hurt us.
Gotcha.
Because if we were actually on the other way, heading up,
Right.
when we were making these cuts that everybody else is making.
We would have been balancing our budget.
And now we're limited by the cap.
Right.
Kimberly, is there a reason that we showed those transfers to offset expenditures? That doesn't seem very transparent. It seems like
Yeah,
those
some
transfers
transfers.
should be under revenues as opposed to somehow decreasing expenditures.
Actually, we just had conversations with
Oh,
our
I signed
external
already.
auditors.
Yeah.
They historically had been listed as interfund transfers, and they've asked that we meet again to mark those in a different way. So this year coming out for the 13-14 budget, it will actually show part of the revenue stream, and it'll say transfer from the reserve.
Because a simple person
Because
like me
I was
sees
gonna
that.
say,
and
I think
thinks,
Glenn's
Yeah.
question, or point is well taken. To the public, this looks like we are spending less money, that our budget that we built was actually lower last year than it was 4 years ago. And what you're saying is, that's not really true.
But hold on, let me say something, because what I'm thinking about, I mean, the reserve, yes, we are expending that money, everybody's expending that money. The fact is, as I understand it, Gary, the reserves were set up because if we had to incur the volatility in those particular 4 accounts that we're dealing with now, we would literally, remember when it used to be 10 up and
Right.
3 down, 10, and so I think in an effort, the strategy that school budgets have, the structure of them is to make them more like this, and the only way you do it is with these reserve accounts.
We need
So
to
your point
I'm
about
not questioning
transparency
that
is
we
good.
should
Well, but, you know, the
gives
fact
it,
is,
but we ought to be transparent that the expenditures are really greater than this. We're being offset as a revenue out of fund balances.
So one example would be the school bus purchases should have been shown in the expenditure budget,
That's correct.
but instead were shown as a transfer. And so next year, the school bus purchases will
Right.
show as an expenditure.
Right, we got to do
It
that.
won't necessarily increase, the numbers will change, it won't increase the taxes.
Right.
Yeah.
But in terms of transparency and the public understanding it, it's a
Correct.
huge difference.
Yeah, the
I think.
cost of doing business really is not remaining the same. I mean, they need to know that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise.
Yeah,
look
and
as if
I
we're-
guess this,
Right.
if I'm
Firing teachers
the
because-
skeptical public,
No, no,
it makes me think, so what else are you sort of shuffling in the deck that I'm not really aware of?
Right, and I'll take a little bit of highness out of me. That was a process that was in place when I was here. So it's through the auditors really that have said,
Uh-huh.
you know, we need to change that.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to do that.
Good.
Yeah.
That's the direction we ought to be going. I mean, we do want to be as transparent as possible.
Well, it's
because
beneficial
That's
to
the only way we're going to get.
But in that defense, in the school bus thing, if I
Community
may,
support.
when it was put before the voters, it was a budget of 22.9, as yes or no.
Yes.
And also.
Separate vote for
The
bus.
separate vote on there to expend up to 350,000 for buses.
Correct.
And so then and there, it was split out of this line of 22.9.
That's part
Now,
of
I
it.
understand your point of, we spent an additional 340,000.
Yeah.
That somehow should be in here, but it was broken out at that particular junction.
But that's not the only thing,
But
correct?
it does need to be.
The.
I mean, if we're
the
using-
ERS is
The
listed on the
employee-
reserve
I mean,
as.
that's
an
the only
interfund
one we
transfer.
draw out significantly.
Correct.
You
That's
know, I mean,
400
we're making a big deal about this, but that number wouldn't be,
That
would
showed
be
it,
another half, I mean, would be another $500,000 maybe.
and it showed on the revenue side. So it says interfund transfer, employee retirement system, 420,000.
Because we only regularly move in and out of the reserve, first we have to have a vote for many of the reserves to move in and out
Correct.
of.
Correct.
But some of the ones that we don't, that's just sort of, we don't do it very often, do we?
No.
It's not like some happens on a regular basis, it's a
We
once.
honestly don't have that many reserves, and the reserves we have are for major things. capital vehicle and equipment.
So do you think we should account for major things like that in the cost of doing business as an expenditure?
Yes, I agree.
You
Well,
do?
yes, yes.
Okay.
But whether
I think
it's-
especially when one of them is, what you're saying is now, one of the four things that is driving the budget and deficit, potential deficit up.
Well,
You
and
just suddenly have it
eventually-
show up or not show up at all.
And the difference is that the money is coming from the reserve to pay for that expenditure, so the numbers will show, it won't really change anything for the
Right.
taxpayer.
Exactly.
But eventually, it will change for the taxpayer because I'm going to wean us from that dependency. And so we may be picking up
But we're all,
$100 grand at a
well, that's
time.
right, and we're only gonna do that because we're not gonna have the savings accounts.
Correct.
I mean, for how many years have we had reserves?
Just go for it.
I mean, it's like 100 years we've had reserves in school districts, so this
No,
is.
I don't think having reserves is a bad thing, I just think that.
Yeah, but I think it's a watershed moment where it was always you were putting in, taking out. Now, these things are literally gonna go away.
Which is all the more reason that we ought to be showing it as expenditures all along, so that people are very aware of that.
Because those
So we're
numbers,
too.
I mean, those
Simple things
numbers,
like me.
and just to keep pace with that, represent significant numbers of bodies around here.
Yeah,
Significant numbers of bodies. Bodies we've never even talked about numbers like that.
right.
But that's, and we were talking about that too. It's what? I mean, unless something happens where we can start putting in significant amounts of money, that employee retirement system thing is gonna be dry in 7 years maybe.
Yeah, and, well, even TRS, there's not a reserve for TRS, and so we will make the jump from 11.84%, which we are currently paying, to upwards of 16.5%, and the following year projected after that is low 20s. So it's not stopping, and it
Right.
just,
So, you know, this is really good because I think we just get used to this because this is what we report that people vote on.
right.
So we would actually have to create our own number. Do you know of other school districts that do it like they're talking about? Because I've been to several of those
like
workshop
on-
things.
on a
Everybody talks
year?
about it the same way.
You mean showing the expenditure in the expenditure budget?
Yeah, no, what these guys are talking about, actually showing the transfers from the reserve. Do other school districts do that?
I'm not exactly sure how they do it. Actually, I asked 3 people at the time, and so I got 3 different answers.
Yeah, I think everybody does.
Pick
it
the one you like.
Well, the true bottom line is how much we expend per year, buses, TRS, ERS, everything. How much does it cost on this 12-month to run this business?
Right.
And then on your revenue side, you want to take 300,000 out of the ERS or capital reserve for buses.
To make it up.
But this bottom line, Gary and I certainly agree, what's it gonna cost to operate?
You gotta
this
know.
college?
And for this year, the big one that is not on there is the buses. And I think there was just some confusion over that and working with Gary Alger last year that the buses had always been just paid for cash for a couple of years.
Well,
right-
for
right-
two years we did
Right
that.
out of the general fund.
Right.
And so
I really
they
didn't
weren't
need to
coming
extend
out of the
it.
general fund, this was the first year
You
they were
don't
coming out of the
understand that.
reserve.
Right.
And there were 2 different parties on how to make that happen, so,
Check
we'll do that differently next year.
And the way it used to be, they'd vote on a 3% increase and the authority to buy buses, and so your 3% and another 3%, your tax increase would literally be 6%. Because it didn't come out of reserve or cash.
Kimberly, aren't we talking about 2 different things? I mean, you've got to maintain the accounting principles, and you understand where this money's going, and I think in order for Gary to have the transparency that he wants, for one thing, no school budget is in any way, shape, or form transparent to the normal person.
Ours
It
is
just
getting,
isn't.
ours is getting very close.
Right, but so to me, it's a question of you being able to have a formula and an instrument that best gives you the information you want. But at the same time, it is how we present the information to the community.
Correct.
And they have to make some alterations and some changes, which normally you wouldn't do in a budget of this.
Well, and
So
that was
complicated.
part of the feedback that I had today, that by showing line by line, that's just
It
overwhelming
is
for the general
overwhelming.
public
Right.
and for most people. But at the same time, I want you to have that information because I want you to pick that very line and say, what's in there, what comprises that cost? And I can tell you.
Right, so I think, Gary, the problem we're running into in terms of transparency is not that we don't want to be transparent, but we have to educate the community to the point they can understand our transparency.
You notice I took a nice pie chart to catch my eye. So.
But it wasn't
that's-
quite so you
that's a sign of what the public's thinking, maybe.
Pie charts.
Moving on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
Cisco?
I can't follow that up.
Thank heavens.
No, things are going well. This is Martha's last week. So, you know, she's been really helpful in getting me up to snuff, you know, for the time being. We're going through applications now. And, you know, we should be interviewing for, you know, her replacement very soon. So, just wanted to keep you abreast of that.
Good.
Well, I just got back from Albany, also Douglas.
And we enjoy.
And Monday we leave for Wisconsin, so for STAR, so. Albany was great, you know, I got to hear Ken Slentz, the Deputy Commissioner, speak several times about a number of things, but he focused primarily on the park assessment, so. And
What is the park assessment?
I don't know what the acronym stands for off the top of my head.
Well, what is it? You don't tell me exactly what
It
park
is,
is.
it's an assessment that's being created nationally.
College and career is, readiness is the end of it.
It's
Readiness
aligned
for college
with, it's
and
aligned with the
careers.
Common Core learning standards
Yeah.
that the states that have adopted the Common Core have.
Oh, this is that company thing you mentioned. These
No.
companies,
Online testing.
the modules, these are those modules?
Yep.
We're buying, the state is buying for these
Yep,
things?
the state has purchased modules or curriculum, and so they kind of rolled that out and gave us
Okay.
more of an idea of what that looks like for ELA 3 through 5 and some lessons 6 through 12, and then for math grades 2, grades 5, and I don't know, they didn't do much 6-12. So I can't speak to that because I didn't attend the 6 through 12 math, but I did the ELA, and it's good stuff. You know, Common Core is the one thing that really it makes sense that the state's doing. So, and it's all aligned with our teacher observation and evaluation process. What the state is asking, what the Common Core is asking, is to get our kids to think critically and get our kids to produce evidence of their thoughts and make well argumented decisions. And so if the Common Core does that, and our teacher observation is really aligned to that, that we want our teachers to pull that out of the students, to make them really think critically. So it just makes sense. It was great to have a week just to submerge myself in curriculum. Because when I'm here, it's not just curriculum, it's special ed and grants and all sorts of stuff. So it was good to have that time.
So it's a good tool that the state bought.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, there's pieces that are better than others. The PARC acronym is Participation for Assessment of Readiness of College and Careers.
Yeah.
Just in short.
It kept me up all night.
Well, it'll
Another
also save a
acronym.
ton of scoring time, because.
So it's all automated. That's part of what the
It's a lot-
joy of
It's
this
gonna be
is,
all
right?
online,
They'll be scored that
but
day.
as you know, that requires us to update our technology and get our technology ready.
Well, that's what we
And
got the
it's all
matrix
but-
for over there.
It's all but 14
It's really big.
states. Yeah, so we're not alone in this at all.
No, and what the deputy commissioner did speak about is that he's planning a plan B, just in case the park assessments do not come through or are not as rigorous as the assessments that the state is creating, that there's a plan B, that we have kind of a parallel assessment that's online that'll also require the technology, but be rigorous.
Right, because the park is, I mean, it's going to be across 50 minus 14
Right.
states. So it isn't going to be specific to New York State.
So is this race to the top stuff, or is this Common Core stuff? Or is that the same?
It's Common Core. That's great.
Where'd you start?
Yeah.
I just can't give up on budget
We got
talk yet.
$186
Oh.
million to raise to the top of the park assessment.
Yes. it is.
Education is big
included.
business, don't let anybody
And I
fool you
think
with
that was
this.
just in the east, because out west they call it the Smarter Balanced Consortium. And they
Consortium.
also received hundreds of millions of dollars to build a parallel test. Doesn't seem very efficient, does it, since it's the same common core, but they'll have one up and running too in the spring.
So they're gonna have this for every subject, not just ELA and math.
No, the PREP
Only
assessments, there's that, let's see, 14, 15, it will be 3 through 8, algebra,
Yeah.
ELA.
Science, I think, will come on board too.
So there's a progression, there's a timeline that the state has put out, but the Board of Regents hasn't adopted part. They're kind of holding out. I mean, that's kind of the undertone of Ken Slenz's speak, is that there's this, they're going to see how rigorous it is. They just think they can do a better job. That's what I'm concerned.
Could have saved that money.
They're doing good work right now, so.
Okay, so I just wanted to add one more comment because I'm not sure that I was clear about the budget. So I didn't want to lead you to believe that it's incorrect the way the district did it this year with the bus purchase. You can absolutely make a purchase out of a capital fund and just write a check and pay for your buses, which is what our district chose to do this year. It's my personal preference and also our auditor's preference to show it in the expenditure budget to increase that line, even though it'll be offset by the revenue from the reserve. So I just wanted to clarify that it wasn't done incorrectly, it's just not my preference, and as Gary said, it doesn't show in that bottom number. But as John had said, it was a separate proposition on the budget vote, so.
It was never in question.
I'm not gonna speak again.
No matter how much we thank you.
Too much already. I'm not entirely too much already.
Talking anymore.
All right, let's do it together.
I'm not talking about it.
Ms. Wiggins?
Just have a quick thing to share. We are midway between the beginning of the year benchmark and the middle of the year benchmark. We met with each grade level for a period of time this week to look at all of the students and how each one was receiving, just the ones receiving interventions are doing. And we either added intensity to the interventions, dropped interventions, or decided to keep them the same. So just to give you some idea of the intensity that the teachers are using to see how students are doing with their interventions.
I take it for a little bit.
We're in for it.
I hope this isn't.
This isn't gonna be long. This is not.
Yeah.
Frank's really concerned about time tonight.
Takes a little while.
Who is? Not me.
I didn't say a word.
I don't care about it.
All right,
No,
so,
I'm not going there.
what's that? If it helps people see, yeah. Oh, my. Oh, that's big. Okay. Wow, that's wow. Big idea. Okay, I'm going to give you an hour's presentation in about 5 minutes, that's my goal. So this is about the changes from the Board of Regents regarding the diploma options for students with disabilities. This Prezi, I have no claim to creating it. I stole it. I admit that fully. But this is the explanation that our counselors received at TACA from the folks at BOCES to help them understand what's coming for our students with disabilities in terms of what their options will be as we phase out the RCT exams. Right now, our students have the three options: Regents Diploma with Advanced Distinction, a Regents Diploma, or a local diploma. Students that get the local diploma are getting that through what we've referred to as the safety net. Historically, that safety net has meant that students could get a 55 or higher on Regents exams and still get Regents credit for them. But they still had, or they were able to use the RCT exams. New York State is phasing out the RCT exams, and yet so they're coming up with a different option. So it's a new safety net, compensatory options.
Whoa.
Sorry. I'm trying to zip through the flashback to get to the meat.
Avatar.
You're going to be busy.
So, essentially, the big change is that students will no longer be able to take RCTs, but they will be able to get a passing score on a Regents exam with a score of 45
in selected circumstances. So I'm going to get into more detail. We don't really need to. This option is available for students who are classified with a disability. They have an IEP or students with a 504 plan. This is the link. So the way it works, students need to score a minimum of a 55 on the English Regents exam and a Math Regents exam. Typically that's the Algebra Regents. So they have to get a minimum of 55 on those two exams in order to graduate. Students can score below 55. They can get at least a 45 or higher on any of the other three major exams that they have to have in order to graduate: Global History, a Science exam, and U.S. History. But in order to get the credit, they have to offset that with a score of at least a 65 on another exam. So this example that they've given shows, let's see if this shows exactly how I did. Yes. So the student earned a 55 or higher on the two key exams, Math and English, and then their score of 68 on the U.S. History exam offsets the 46 they got in the Global History. This student gets a Regents diploma, or a local diploma, excuse me. A second example, the student has a 79 on the English, an 86 on Math, a 45 on Global, a 64 on Science, and a 49 on U.S. History. Their scores of 79 and 86 on the English and Math offset the 45 and 49 on the two social studies exams. So yes, this student gets a local diploma. Here we have a student who got a 50 on the English exam and a 62 on the Math. Automatically that student would not be eligible. They need to get a minimum of a 55 on English and Math. So that's a no. This is one more example. So 61 and a 59 on the English and Math. So they've got that criteria down. The 49 on Global, though, is offset by the 78 in Science, but there's nothing to offset the 52 in U.S. History. They need to have another exam over 65. So, in a nutshell, this is their way of doing away with the RCTs. Is now, instead of passing with an RCT, getting the RCT, you now have to have a minimum of 45 and offset it with something higher than a 65 somewhere else.
How do you like this? Oh, sorry, Douglas.
I'm not sure yet. I haven't really done any in-depth analysis to see.
Can you shut this off?
Yeah. Basically, yeah. The last point in this slide that I'll skip is just the timeline for implementation. The RCTs will still exist for our current juniors and seniors, but our 9th and 10th grade students will no longer have the option for those RCTs.
John,
Yeah.
could you email us a copy of that? That is the clearest explanation.
Sure, I can email
So,
that.
it's a community of presentations, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
People create them and put them up there?
So I'll email you the link.
Okay.
I'll email the link and
Thank
she'll forward it to everybody.
Thank you so much.
The last slide that I didn't do, I don't need to, is really, it goes into greater detail about the phasing in of this process, but.
So you like this? You like this change? Is this a good change?
I want to go back and look and see how it would have affected some of our kids who were close. The kids that just squeaked by and the kids that maybe didn't squeak by, and see how it will change things. It simplifies things because we don't have to deal with the RCTs. But again, the question is that we always talk about raising the bar for folks, but yet you can pass with a 45, and even a 45 doesn't really mean 45% because those scores are rated on a scale, so it's not really a percentage. So a student can get a 65 and pass the algebra exam, but in fact may have only gotten 35 or 40% of the questions right. I don't know the exact percentages. My math teachers would tell you. But the issue is that when you look at those, it's deceiving.
Is this just from New York State or is this U.S. one?
Just New York State. This is the New York State.
Because we're the only one with Regents. There's hardly any of that left anywhere in the country.
Yeah, we didn't have that in Michigan.
Yeah,
you didn't
never
have
had any of that.
Regents
Yeah.
test. You either passed the class and attended and got your diploma, or you didn't.
No one else has any idea.
We went off to Ann Arbor.
They also
Went off to Ann Arbor.
They also are working on, which is not, it's a proposal for a skills-based assessment.
Yes.
That would be another alternative to a diploma. It would be sort of what we compare to an IEP diploma, but it's based on students earning a skill and demonstrating career readiness in some capacity. So that is yet to be approved.
But we are fortunate in having people in this area working directly on that, which is nice.
It is nice, because right now that option is only for our alternatively assessed students, which are really our our students who attended BOCES. So they're trying to extend it up to that other group of kiddos who just, who have the skills and would have qualified for the IEP diploma, who are here, but right now are in 10th grade and don't have any options.
Ms. Brown, do you have anything for us?
Yes. So the winter sports are finally beginning, and a lot of people are excited about track, and that got them talking about the new track coming in. And so I hear a lot of people like kind of finally, we're getting a new track, and there are lots of basketball games happening this week. And last Friday and Saturday was the fall play. And it was successful, and it's really exciting because, the first production of the year. And the GSA meetings have been going really well. And so I just wanted to say thank you for approving it. And there's like a fairly good number of people that come every meeting, so things are good.
If you talk to your classmates, should this be approved, it'll be another year or so on before we get a track. I don't want to get them disappointed.
There's also a music concert Thursday, next Thursday. The high school pre-holiday concert is Thursday evening. And also, please take a look at the artwork as you head through, celebrating some good work from us. High school
Jazz
students.
concert is spectacular.
You should let your classmates know that are excited about the possibility of the track, that there's a forum for the public to come listen to and maybe show up, and maybe show their excitement to the voters who are going to vote.
Okay.
And their parents.
And when their parents should vote.
A week from Tuesday.
Do you have anything, Mike?
Yes, I do. Step up to the cushion chair. Actually, Mr. Plitt told me to come here and have the microphone. A couple of things I wanted to share with you. Bus 151 that was involved in the accident on the 19th has gone up to New York Bus Sales for repairs. DOT inspectors have been down and looked it over, as has our insurance adjuster, so I should know within about a week what repairs that's going to require and timelines for when we expect to get it back. We do have spares in the fleet, so we're in pretty good shape with that. Probably the most important thing was I wanted to review with you a situation we're experiencing with our roofs on the elementary school and the high school. Back in September, there was a significant hailstorm that went through the area, and at that time we sustained some damage to the high school auditorium roof, which we knew right off the rip. So we were able to get a roofing contractor in, our insurance adjuster in, and actually took care of those repairs right away. Since then, we have been tracking down some minor leaks throughout the elementary school and the high school, and have since determined that that was also part of that hail damage. We didn't know it at the time. It's taken a little bit longer for some of these leaks to show up. As it turns out, the extent of that damage is significant. It is all of the 1995 roof sections, the ones we're considering replacing under the upcoming capital project.
Which one is that, Mike, for those of us that weren't here in '95?
It's the elementary school and the high school, so major portions, about 60 to 70% of both of those roofs were put on in 1995. The areas that sustained the most damage are what we call the cricket areas. They're the drainage swales, if you will, on the roof that directs the water to the roof drains. And the roof membrane is not supported flat on the insulation to take any of the impact of the hail. It's kind of stretched across it like a drum membrane. And because these roofs are about 15 years old, they've lost all of their elasticity and they're fairly brittle. So that hail, when you go up, it looks like somebody shot marbles out of a gun. And we've got some areas up there that within about a 25 to 30 square foot area, there's 100 of these little things. Not all of them are leaking at this point, but once you get the weight of snow and ice and some water underneath, you then have hydraulic pressure and it starts to push it through any minute hole. Insurance companies on board, same adjuster will be down here to meet with me tomorrow. We actually started this process last Wednesday. The insurance company has agreed that they will honor it under our first claim for hail damage, so no more deductible. We have discussed the preliminary repairs.
Basically, the easiest way to do it is just take rolls of membrane 4 foot wide and just completely strip in those crickets as opposed to trying to track each one of those. Our staff has been involved for the last 3 days just cleaning all those roof sections. They're up there with hoses and soft bristle brooms and squeegees and prepping the areas for the roofing contractor to come in. Spoke with the contractor this afternoon. They are ready to mobilize Wednesday morning. They will be here to start cleaning and doing all their prep. They have 4 rolls of material on hand, and the rest they will have in their possession in less than a week, so they can get right on this for us. Just finalizing some details with the adjuster tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, but we'll be going. They're going to be
So other than deductible, this isn't costing anything other than deductible?
At this point, it should be no cost
How
to
long
the
will
district.
are these roofs in the capital project?
These sections of roof are what's included in the capital project at this time, yes.
But this fix is gonna have to be unfixed to do the capital project, yes?
Right, this fix is temporary. It's trying to buy us a year or two. This is
Right, because that's how long it'll take us
Right.
to get to the roof, right?
This is the short term. And when our capital project vote passes, we intend to have a conversation with our architect and engineer to see if we can't pull this roof piece out and fast track it. Work with state education department to try and get these roofs out a little bit sooner. Because it is temporary. We know that these repairs we're doing right now are probably about 85 to 90% of those areas. We're going to have to track the other ones as they happen. We have some materials here on site that we utilize to take care of these leaks on a regular basis anyways, but there's no way to get every single one of them. It's just impossible. You'd have to resheet the whole roof, and that's just not now. So that's where we're at. Any questions?
What was the cost estimate on the damage?
About $84,000 for both roofs. That's both buildings.
Total, 80.
Total 84.
What's a new roof cost?
A whole lot. Back when I was directly involved in the design for the high school roof, we were at about $16 a square foot. So.
Can't have a leaky roof. You gotta get the roof.
No, you can't. So
Can't open the doors.
we're tracking it. And then you had asked a question about fire hydrant earlier in the district.
Oh, yes, would you please explain that if we have a line in here, or approval of an easement?
Correct.
Where does that affect us? Where do they want to hook into for the water main?
Well, so everyone knows, the village of Trumansburg has requested an easement from the district for an underground utility, domestic water, to extend it to the fairgrounds, which has been annexed as part of the village. They need to complete the loop for fire. Right now, it's just a dead-end line going over there. If you go out the auditorium doors and turn right, where the driveway goes right around to the parking lot, right on that corner is a fire hydrant. And during the 2001 project, there was actually a tap and a valve installed there by the village during our project, with the understanding they were eventually going to do this. The work will not impact any paved areas or any athletic fields or anything else. It will stay to the outside perimeter of the high school parking lot. It'll go around behind the pavilion on this side of the pond, and then it will go down the east side of the tennis courts before it cuts over and goes over behind Burn Dairy and through behind Falls Tavern over to the fairgrounds to connect there. But we've known this was coming for a little while. They approached us about a month ago, I
It's
think.
not a problem, is there any problem here?
No, none whatsoever. I'm actually surprised it took. I'm
no
surprised it
problem for
took
us.
this long. It doesn't impact anything we
When
do.
we start talking about paved areas, it's a different deal.
Yeah.
They're digging in wasteland for us.
They're digging in totally unused areas. We don't use it for anything. And some of it's not
I
even.
mean, it's there for stormwater management in one way, shape, or form, right, for the parking lots.
Yeah, but more than 50% of where they're at, we don't even utilize, mow, maintain. It's just, it's scrub brush. Okay?
Yep, thanks,
Great.
Mike.
Yeah.
Open forum. At this time, we would like to give district residents an opportunity to ask questions about this agenda or about questions within the school district. Personnel matters will not be addressed in a public session. Comments may be recorded and responded to by the Board of Education or superintendent at a later date. We ask that you keep your comments to 2 minutes or less. Any volunteers? New business. Acceptance of a donation from Susan Borton, a notebook PC to the high school yearbook club.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 9B, approval of the TST methodology.
Unit cost methodology.
Do we,
So moved.
now
Okay, now tell us what unit cost methodology is.
There's an awful
It's
lot
just how
of it.
BOCES bills us, so some are per student fees, some are, I have to look at the actual breakdown.
Real lot of.
Yes, so it's, all the different services that fall under the BOCES umbrella are billed to us in various ways, so career and tech kids are
So,
based
but I
on
don't
a 3-year
understand, why do
average.
we have to do this every year? What is the significance of actually making this so formal?
I don't know if it's something on their end or if it's a legality, but I
This
think
just
it's
seems like
just mostly so that you're informed, so that you
we're
realize.
informed that they bill us?
Well, how they bill us.
How they bill us.
Right, so
But
career
they
and
don't
tech kids
tell
are
us
billed
how
on a
much.
3-year
They bill us the same
average.
way? Don't they bill us the same way every year? Or do they change the way they bill us?
I'm not aware of any recent changes.
But we do have
Special
changes in
education
board
students
members.
are by the kiddo, by the program.
They don't actually tell us how much they bill us. They just tell
Well,
us how
actually,
they
the
bill us.
service contracts are out now.
They give us a number.
And so,
Yeah.
we are working our way through the list to confirm which services we're interested in. And then sometime in January, they'll give us a price breakdown, hopefully, of what we can project for 13-14.
Is that
So
breakdown according to all these 100 different categories, or is it?
The breakdown is by
Big number.
COSER.
It's
So
what?
it's by COSER, so I'll keep using career and tech. So career and tech, it would say X number of dollars per student multiplied by the number of students. Others are by service, so if it's payroll, we pay a certain fee for a payroll service.
Based on the size of our district.
I believe it's by size, it's by a lot of.
Well, that would be the unit cost methodology
There we go.
that they don't want to tell us.
Right. Tell us they do it that way. Say how much.
We love BOCES.
Any further discussion?
We can start contracting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Moving on to C, approval of the chairperson for the election inspectors and the assistant.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approval for a permanent easement as discussed earlier.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Old business? None? Policy?
We haven't done, what's with policy?
Not much,
Who's the policy chair? I might want to work that.
technically speaking.
Oh, just shoot me.
We don't have.
Yeah, no, we do. Sure we do.
We made
We
one.
have a policy
Yeah, we
committee. We
did.
started at the reorg and didn't.
No, you asked who the chair was, and I said
Oh,
technically.
we don't have a chair?
speaking, I don't think so, I wouldn't know who it was.
I thought it was you, Jane.
No, I'm on the policy committee, not
Yeah,
chair.
likewise.
Okay, we're easing into board forum here.
That's pretty quick.
I have a
Although, John,
question
before
that,
you do that, I would like to say that we do need to have a policy meeting.
That
So
we do.
how do we go about doing that?
Some,
We could throw some dates and times.
throw some dates. I don't know who's on.
Not only
We
dates
have to
and
find out
times,
who's
but
on.
what we want
Right.
to address.
John de facto, Frank.
No, I'm not, I don't think I'm on anymore. I think Glenn is.
Yeah.
Okay, then it'll be Glenn, John, and myself.
But you gotta look at the reorg notes.
Oh, I know.
You know how to
He
do
is.
that.
we pretty much.
Yeah, you have to. You're,
He's got it.
so we're-
Okay, I'd like to bring up, I forewarned you about this, Mike, is the tablets for the 5th grade. Were just identical as to where we were last year. We purchased them and we didn't get them into the classroom until just before Christmas. And I'm getting calls from little kids saying, Mr. White, can we have our tablets?
Well, we talked about it, is it today?
Today?
Should have asked if Santa Claus is
I don't know.
one real
And a few parents.
Well,
Yeah.
do the 9th graders have them?
Yes.
Who should I look at? You or him?
Ninth graders,
Yes.
you can look
Yes.
at it. Well, Mike Bliss knows probably the most, because he's dealing with this a lot, but then when we get to the middle school in the 5th grade, it'll be Cisco and Michael that know the most. 'cause they
But
can
I got
talk.
the impression we were training like crazy about
Training
this.
what?
Training teachers on these tablets? No?
At the high school, we're doing a lot.
What?
Yes.
You're doing a lot.
What gave you that impression? Because
that was
that's news to me.
the intent.
Okay, so I'm glad to hear it's news to you. I guess
Jason Clark.
this is very good.
We'll give you as much clarity as we can. Jason Clark
Really good.
was hired to come in and
Yeah.
train
I've
staff
heard of
in
this guy.
technology. And I think the most of that has been at the high school on the tablets, but throughout the rest of the district, it's been on the smart boards. That would be my sense of that. My sense overall of the fifth grade tablets is that, from what I learned today, because John did ask me about it, because I just thought, well, there was an issue this fall with concern about parents and students having email addresses and students emailing someone who a parent didn't want them to email, those kinds of privacy issues. So I thought that was part of it, but as it turns out, we have some that don't work, like about 26 of them that don't work.
Do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, please do.
Sure.
Michael's got it.
So we did get some well-informed pushback from fifth grade parents who asked a lot of good questions, some of which we had answers for, some of which indicated to us that we had more thinking to do and more discussion to do. When we brought these questions to the fifth grade team, it became clear to the fifth grade team that there was some question there about how to move forward and some ideas about how to move forward differently. In addition, we had a question arise about the viability of the units themselves. We bought enough units last year for the fifth grade and the ninth year, but we had breakage. So we got the ninth grade started, but we didn't have all the units we need to start the fifth grade if we wanted to, 20 to 25 units short. So we started thinking creatively, without wanting to spend more money, about how we could continue to move forward. And even as late as today, we were talking about an admin team and deciding that the way we want to move forward with this is to create a pod of 26 of these tablets and place them in the middle school library and make them available for those teachers that are ready to move forward and not mandate the other teachers who are not ready to move forward yet. And to take some of the other ones that are left over that would have gone to fifth grade and redirect those in 2 pods of 10 to the high school library, so that the classrooms that are mixed 9th and 10th graders who are struggling now with implementing the tablet because the 9th graders have them and the others don't, can go to the library and check out these other units and now have everybody in those classrooms using the tablet together. So it took a little while to sort all this out, and time is precious, collaboration time is rare, but we've started meeting regularly on Monday mornings to talk specifically on technology, and I feel we've made really good progress in the last few weeks because of that. It's keeping our eye on the ball, and things are moving along. Whether now this will be the tablet of the future is another question. We started the tablet program last year with a device that was already a year old. So this device this year is already in its 3rd year. Most people don't recommend using tablets more than 4 years. So we're already at the cusp of asking the question of what's the tablet going forward? Is it the same tablet? Is it another version of the Android tablet, or is it something like an iPad? And so we've begun talking about how we can work collaboratively with teachers to give them tools to start to inform themselves and experiment and build more expertise. One of the major things that got in the way with the initial pilot was delivering units to teachers at the same time as students. Right? This didn't really give the teachers the chance to explore and build up their own expertise before they were asked to run with them. And so that's one of the things, especially in the 5th grade, we've been asked to reconsider. Colleagues, do you have anything else to add?
Can I add just the level of complexity around the licenses that you were mentioning today, just to find out who has control of the licenses so that we know who can get online and who can't.
On the administrative side of these things, Michael McCoy is referring to the fact that the units were purchased when other staff were on board. Then those contracts got transferred to the BOCES. And BOCES people administrated the contracts for us in the interim. And now we're getting control of those contracts back again in district, so that people in district can do things like activate them or deactivate them as they're needed. Because one of the things we've realized with the pod of 26 that's going to go to the mid-school, and with the 2 pods of 10 that are going to go to the high school, is we don't need to have the G3 service turned on those. So once I have authority in the account, I will deactivate those 46, and that will lower our costs
Well,
immediately.
And then all the ones that aren't working at all.
Well, we still
I
are.
always got the impression, let's stop here for a second. I always
Yep.
got the impression that, you are right, we have nobody here. We literally have nobody here from when we made this decision. You guys. Well, yeah, that's
So-
right, but we didn't use the tablets.
Maybe I should have kept
We didn't use the tablets in elementary school, but
Yeah.
you are moving forward.
Yeah.
You did the training. I think I'm surprised to hear this because I think we were led to believe that this was happening in both grades. So
We
this
were.
is news. Now, what I remember from the previous people was that really they didn't care about the devices. They just give you all the devices you want. They want the service contract. You know, the
$80 a month.
yeah, for every unit. So how is it that because we were like their
case.
golden child there. John was flying around the country selling these things for the company, giving talks at state board conferences.
Got free OtterBox.
That's right, got free Outbox, right? And so what I'm saying is, I thought that they were wanting us. Remember?
Yes.
He used to say, "Oh, we'll service you," and now we're like the poor stepchild. It sounds like we don't have enough for our fifth grade.
I'm looking for the question.
It's now sounding like a very
There's-
logical.
The question is, how come we don't get these things for free when they break?
Yes, well, that's not the terms of our contract. I don't know what was said or what was promised, but what we're bound to is the contract that's in writing. And so that's what we have to look at when it comes to actually getting things done.
How long is this contract?
Pardon?
Is there a length of this
It
contract?
was a 2-year deal, I think.
There is a 3-year contract, isn't there? I am still getting control of the contract from BOCES, so I haven't had a chance to actually review all the terms yet.
Could you give us that information, please?
You bet. I've been working on it for 3 weeks to try to get it. So I'll be happy to share it as soon as it's in my hands. I'm told that it's going to happen any day, but I've been hearing that for a week or so. So I'm trying to be patient and persistent at the same time.
Well, last year, we as a board, we took the blame for maybe buying the tablets prematurely and not doing professional development on the teachers and administrators who were going to use them.
Right.
And through great pain in dealing with parents saying we either need it, and it was new to a lot of parents, and they probably the same issues you're dealing with today. But in the end, we had thought we were going to move those up a grade and actually have 4 grades involved. And the board had decided we're going to just try to tread water here because of the lacking of professional development for the teachers back there, and then put all resources into that over the summer and beginning of this year. And I myself am disappointed that we're treading water doing exactly the same as we did last year.
But I would say we're not at all doing the same thing we were doing.
The high school,
Yeah,
except
okay, and I can speak to that, Mike and I have done a lot of work around tablets and working with the 5th grade and looking at the surveys that were taken last year.
Yeah, that's right.
Because there was a survey given to
Yes.
say, how did this go for you? And people were not happy. They were not happy. They weren't happy with the implementation. The teachers were sort of thrown to the wolves with these things, right?
Right.
So that
They liked the idea.
The idea was
they liked.
idea was
The
beautiful.
implementation
Right.
was a disaster.
Was a disaster. So in the beginning of this year, one
No,
of
you
the
don't
things
know.
that we decided that we were going to try to do was to figure out how to implement this with some level of security, with some level of integrity. The program last year was, here's some tablets, try to use them. The program this year was, okay, do we have enough to do that? 2, if we did have enough, what would that mean? Would it just be the same thing? And it turned out that it was going to be the same thing. So we decided that we were going to say, okay, we have to have a plan, because there was no real plan. We can't find a plan if there was a plan, and that leaves us at a loss, and sort of puts us out there in terms of how do we respond then when things do go haywire and wrong, as we found.
I do want to add, if I might, that there was training that was delivered over the summer to the teachers that were involved in the pilot program last year. So there was a real effort to try and make them more aware. So I do believe that teacher understanding of what these tablets offer to education is actually in a better place than it was. That's part of the reason they're asking much deeper and more penetrating questions on implementation.
I would just like to point out that as a result of having gone through this exercise, which may at this point in time seem somewhat futile, that it really isn't at all, that we are looking at computerized testing in 2015, and that we are well ahead of the game, probably 2 years ahead of the game, compared to many schools in terms of assessing, wrestling with the issues, and being able, hopefully, to be ready in 2015 to meet that challenge. Financially, I don't know how the heck we're going to do it, but yes, John, sorry.
As the one person who was here when this, I feel like people are talking about, but at the high school where we've also been implementing this, I feel like we're talking about this fiasco. At the high school, we identified 3 problems with implementation last year. The one was the training, which we have overwhelmingly addressed, because Jason Clark has been a phenomenal asset in our building and is working directly with the teachers who've been implementing, not all of those teachers, but some of the teachers, and I'll get to reasons why, but the training wasn't there. Now we have Jason, and it's been addressed very thoroughly. The accessibility of the devices in our building. We had 3G system in a cement box, and it didn't work in the classrooms. It was slow, it was tedious, it was tiresome, it was frustrating, and it didn't work. We now have a Wi-Fi system throughout our entire building, and they work quickly. And then the third problem was the distribution, because in a 9-12 environment, at the high school, we don't have classrooms that are purely 9th grade. We have 2 courses in our building, English and Social Studies, that are the only courses that are purely 9th grade. So we've addressed, that's the one issue that we've really struggled to address. So if you go into Larry Glanton's classroom, and I would tell you, if you ever get a chance to stop by my building, come and see what Larry Glanton is doing with tablets in his classroom, because they are a daily part of his activities. They are integral to what he's doing. He's sending kids home with real activities to do with those homework that's on the tablet. He's, when you walk in his classroom, he's got the kids interacting with maps on their tablets. He's got kids doing all of their quizzes. He did his pre-assessment for his new APPR, all on the tablets. So the thing is that it is working. But it's working in pockets. So the third issue that we still have to overcome is I need every kid in the high school to have them, to make them as effective as they could be, and to allow my teachers to really be implementing them. We don't need 3G service anymore.
So maybe we ought to look at taking those 5th grade tablets and giving them to the 10th graders who are already implementing.
That's exactly what we're
That idea sounds really good.
Yeah.
We're just because we were told one thing, and now we find out by dumb luck it's something else.
It's kind of unfolded slowly. I mean, if you think about it, Michael had to get on board.
Yeah,
Cisco had to get on board. It's sort of
the thing I'm very sensitive to the fact that everybody's talking about this as like this fiasco last year. And quite frankly, any new program, project on this level is very complex, and you just don't know what obstacles you're going to face. If you guys walked into classrooms 5-10 years ago when the first smartboards were coming out, it was a glorified and very expensive whiteboard, and all people were doing was using electronic markers. Now, if you walk into, I could rattle off Mimi Duncan, Scott Voorhees, Mike Flood, Radley, Vondercheck. I mean, these guys. You walk in the classroom, it is completely constant, integrated.
Yeah, it's the way you do
part of what
business
they're
now.
doing.
My daughter comes home with something, and I'm looking at it, and it's a document picture that she got from the smartboard thing. It's no more paper, it's all
So
integrated.
as we continue to talk about moving forward with a program like this, I think there are definitely things that we've learned over the years. But last year, while there were lots of very difficult problems, we've really learned a ton from doing that. And I think that moving forward, we really are in a great place. I think where we are is 2 years ahead of what most districts are doing. But I'll tell you, if we were to we took our foot off the gas last year because we struggled, and it was, I totally understand that. But we put some fixes in place that have really overcome, at the high school at the very least, a ton of the problems. The fact is that our kids can get access to the internet like that.
So the Wi-Fi was a major.
Major,
that was
major.
That
Let
was
me
huge.
also, if I might add, that we've also now using iPad tablets with special education delivering tier 3 services, which is a great step forward, and Sarah can speak. And that training took place this summer as planned, was executed, and is implementing wonderfully.
Mike, quick question.
Yeah.
The 26 tablets that are non-functioning, are those specifically from the middle school, or do they include some from the high school that?
Both. So the non-functioning with our mixture of electronics, broken parts, missing, screens cracked.
Right, so it's not
various
just the
things.
middle school has been particularly hard.
No,
Not
no.
using their body armor. Oh dear.
We are hard on things.
Yeah.
Well, then that brings the question as to maybe this is not a real good idea to implement it at so young an age, and especially since the high school is doing so well, to move them.
Well, I think the thinking, I mean, we've done a lot,
Can I
we
do
talk
that?
about this all the time.
See, technology is moving along, right? The iPads that we all have on our desk right now have something called Gorilla Glass.
Yes.
They're much more sturdy. The Galaxies that we bought are not Gorilla Glass. It's, you know.
So before we go further down this, I think what John's done is, I don't know how everybody else on the board feels, but I think like you're realizing that you have this Monday morning technology moment. I don't know that we need it every board meeting, but I think we need a technology moment. We need where we hear about this on a more, because it feels like when we did that capital project and then we didn't talk about it for 18 months and then the price like tripled and we're like, what the hell, you told us this? And then you guys, somebody sat there, like you're sitting there saying, well, you know, we haven't talked about this in a year and a half. What the hell did you think was gonna happen? Well, so I think for the point, I think as long as you guys all stay in place, we can do some technology updates as we go, that would be useful.
Because it's going to be a very large investment in this testing down the road.
Well, we want to do it right, and if you're saying it's going to happen anyway, we got to do it. Sorry, stop putting my hand up.
Well, I'm sorry. Anyway, I would like to point out that there is another feature to all of this, and that is colleges are all offering almost everything online and with either tablets or computers, something. And they are beginning to panic because our kids are not graduating ready to
That's right.
use these skills. I mean, we're having enough trouble with college readiness anyway, but to toss in the fact that kids are not used to managing their time efficiently using a computer is really a huge
And I'd say,
deal.
a friendly amendment, I'd say career 2, college or career.
Yeah, or career,
And
I'm
when
sorry,
you go,
yeah,
you need to have
exactly.
these skills.
You do need the skills, both the social skills and the skills.
Well, you need to be able to navigate the technology. I mean, we always felt like one of the major things was literally, I remember these early discussions, just to get it in the kids' hands.
Right.
And, you know, that eventually it would happen.
Right, and I think that's, you know, with that in mind, there was this, again, that's the beautiful nugget, right? So then you get it in everybody's hands and then,
All of a
well,
sudden.
some people's hands do this with it. And some people's hands do this with it. And now I'm upset because my hands did this with it and what are you gonna do about it? Right? So we didn't have a plan for that. We didn't know
You can't
what we were
possibly.
gonna do about with that. And when they're that young, you can't sort of gauge unless you go into the technology and figure out how to put some controls in place that protect us and protect them, what that's gonna be.
And-
So,
I mean, that discussion was happening and
Whether you
then,
look at the survey we sent out, or you
Correct.
talk to the new 5th grade parents, or you talk to the 5th grade teachers, they're asking important questions like, is this the place to have a one-to-one program when we haven't taught the kids typing yet? We haven't taught them internet safety yet. We haven't really taught them about cyberbullying yet. We haven't really taught them about social etiquette or social media yet. Are they ready? Are their parents ready? Do their
Well,
parents
that's a
know how to
great- that's a
tell the
great
difference between,
question. When will
are
they
they
be
using a
ready?
game or are they doing their homework? So there are serious questions that need to be discussed before we decide how we're going to move forward.
But it
Those
is
are the-
our responsibility to address those questions and teach whatever skills are necessary
That's right.
to, and are identified as being necessary. Sorry.
I guess those are the serious questions that I'd like to have the discussion brought back to the board.
Yeah.
And among those, I've never been a big proponent, so I'll put that right out on the table for anyone who doesn't know that, of these tablets. Look around the room here, how many of you are using a tablet right now?
Mine is
Tina's
John.
is dead.
Dear.
She wore it out.
Like our fifth graders?
Well, I must say the board itself is guilty in some of this too, by jumping out. We were enamored by getting into the computer age.
I think we did the right thing.
It was
Well, we did do, I mean, you have to take those leaps though. in order
We
to
did what
figure
everyone
out.
does, you get romanced by the possibilities,
Yes.
and you're right. There's nuggets, right? And that's what we gotta focus
Right,
on.
and
How to
the
make,
nuggets are obviously happening. in
Yeah,
places.
yeah, that's-
The high school's
yeah.
doing great things. I mean, if I hear about Larry's class, you know, one more time in the meeting, I'm gonna actually join his class. But there's obviously these pockets of things that are really happening.
and that's the way it's gonna be, and you gotta learn from where you
Right,
had
so
success.
we're
and
figuring
say,
out
"That
how
could
to
do it."
resource those electronics, that's fine. That's part of the process. And maybe we don't implement them in fifth grade, maybe we figure out where to put those in the middle school so that they make more sense and, you know, figure out how to work curriculum around them. You know, those are all discussions that we're having now, but that wouldn't have happened had that not happened last year.
And you can have your cake and eat it too in the middle school.
Absolutely.
Just don't give the kids complete control of the tablets, but make the tablets accessible to them, which is, that sounds like that's what you're planning.
Correct.
Yes. So true.
There's a couple other aspects that are just emerging. One is, I think we're getting some freedom from the state on how we spend our textbook dollars. We can spend them on electronic textbooks, and really, you might be thinking about this as a board, we might not buy any more textbooks. We just might not.
But we have to subscribe to textbooks that are regularly being updated on the iPad.
Or we
Not
have
necessarily.
teachers that are developing their own textbooks.
There's-
That's one thing that my teachers have already started doing is they're creating their own content to use on the tablets.
And they're like creating these little ebooks things.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're flipping
And that
classrooms.
they can
they're
just
doing
turn
all
into a
sorts of things.
PDF. Another thing that just emerged last Friday is the Heather Sheridan Thomas is asking the BOCES superintendents, are we interested in opening back up long distance learning in
Right.
COSER? And already I've seen 4 emails saying, yes, we're
We have
interested in exploring that. So I think that, and this is why, and actually, this 10 o'clock Monday, we found a good time in the week to start to meet. And it's a very energizing meeting. We'll be coming with proposals to the board that really will shape the future of our district.
Well, and this is the thing we have to think about from a
And-
budget perspective
Yeah.
as the
We
future
need to budget
goes, and
for it.
as we're downsizing, which is an inevitable thing, I think if we're gonna stay a competitive school district and attract people to live here and be, you know, maybe even a place where people wanna pay to come, for people who can pay to come, we have to be that place that people wanna do that. So, I mean, I simply can't preside over the demise of this thing, sitting around moving the deck chairs on the top of the Titanic. I want to hear from you. I think we want to hear from you about that there is hope, that we can invest, that there is possibilities, because we are sitting in the muck and mire plenty. We don't need any more of that from you. We got plenty of that.
I think
So-
that the conversations we've had have been really exciting. And every time we're getting close to the end of the time, we say, we don't have enough time, we don't have time. Which is why.
So we want to be part of that.
Carry it on.
We want to be part of that at some level, so you'll
Every
become.
now and again.
Every now and again, right?
But I
Thank you for the opportunity.
I think it's also important to keep in mind that ERS, TRS, health insurance and such are not the only cost escalators. We really haven't been looking very carefully at just exactly how much we have been expending on technology. And I think in the future, we need to look at that very, very closely because we're not getting a whole lot.
Well, but you know, I think the major obstacle was this Wi-Fi deal.
Yeah.
Without we learned with these tablets, without the infrastructure, they're
You
useless.
you can't.
You're a prisoner.
I
to-
think that and staff training, you can have all the equipment, and unless they're weaving it in and they see the importance of it in their daily classroom work, they're busy, they're really busy all the time. It has to really help them and be beneficial, so, yeah, we'll be coming.
Michael, I just have one last question. So in the tweezing out and getting a contract from BOCES,
Yes.
do we think that for the broken devices or the devices that are not being used, we may be able to turn off the 3G? Or break the contract on the broken devices?
thought they were.
Yes, once I have authority of the contract, I'll be able to turn off the GC3 on the broken devices as well as on the pods that we're putting into the libraries.
Oh, cool.
So we're getting a handle on it, as we already done.
But it is funny, you know, you look around, I mean, yes, I didn't mean to say you weren't here, but it wasn't involving you. You're the only guy It's only been a year. Well, yes, 2, but no, I mean,
This is the second.
we're in the second year.
Yeah.
We're in the second year. We went through the first year with one group of people. He's the only one in the second year.
No, Jeannie was here.
Yeah, but she's
It
not
wasn't-
working.
It wasn't a.
She's not.
Okay, you weren't part of it.
It was, I had a tablet building.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
A very good discussion.
Thank you.
Well, we have that 'cause